In the early days of home gaming, consoles like the Atari 2600 felt almost magical. You inserted a plastic cartridge, flipped a switch, and instantly a game came to life. No loading screens, no operating system, no installation. But behind this simplicity was an incredibly clever combination of hardware and low-level software design. This article explains how Atari cartridge-based consoles worked, what was inside the cartridges, and how games ran at both the hardware and software levels. The big picture. What happened when you inserted a cartridge? Unlike modern storage media, Atari cartridges were not passive data containers. They were active hardware components that plugged directly into the console's internal bus. When a cartridge was inserted, the CPU executed code directly from the cartridge's ROM. No operating system was involved. No files were loaded into memory. No bootloader or software layer existed. The cartridge effectively became part of the console itself. What was inside an Atari cartridge? The core component of every cartridge was a ROM chip. Typical sizes were extremely small by modern standards. 2 kilobytes. For kilobytes, 8 kilobytes. This ROM contained machine code, graphics data, sound data, game logic, and rules. There were no game files or assets in the modern sense, only raw executable code. More advanced cartridges included additional hardware such as bank switching logic, small RAM chips, specialized support circuits. This allowed cartridges to overcome console limitations and expand the system's capabilities. What was inside the Atari console? The Atari 2600 used the MOS 6507, a cost-reduced version of the famous 6502 processor. Clock speed, about 1.19 MHz. No hardware interrupts. Extremely limited address space. RAM. The console had only 128 bytes of RAM. Not kilobytes, bytes. The TI handled graphics output, sound generation, synchronization with the television signal. Crucially, the Atari had no frame buffer. The screen was not stored in memory. Everything was drawn in real time. How did games actually run? Power on execution. When the console was powered on, the CPU began executing instructions from a fixed memory address. That address pointed directly into the cartridge ROM. The game code started immediately. There was no boot sequence beyond this. The infinite game loop. An Atari game was essentially a single infinite loop, while draw the next scan line, update object positions, check collisions, generate sound. Real-time graphics, racing the beam. Television displays draw images line by line from top to bottom. The Atari CPU had to keep up with this process in real time. Developers had to feed the graphics hardware at the exact moment the TV was drawing each line. Missing the timing resulted in visual glitches. This technique became known as racing the beam. For every scan line, the CPU had to position sprites, set colors, trigger drawing at precise clock cycles. The result was an intense synchronization between software and hardware. Sprites and visual tricks. The TI supported only a few on-screen objects. 2 player sprites, 2 missiles, 1 ball. Games that appeared to show many enemies achieved this by reusing the same sprite multiple times per frame, changing positions mid-scan line, exploiting human visual persistence. Many multiple enemies were actually the same object drawn repeatedly at different times. Bank switching, beating the memory limit. The CPU could only address a small section of ROM at once. To use more memory, cartridges implemented bank switching. Writing to a special memory address would trigger hardware logic inside the cartridge, swap a different ROM bank into the CPU's address space. This meant software could dynamically control physical hardware. Why it felt like magic. The Atari experience felt magical because the cartridge became part of the machine, games ran instantly, there was no abstraction layer, every CPU cycle mattered. Developers were not just writing games, they were choreographing hardware in real time. Conclusion. Atari cartridge games were a masterpiece of constraint-driven engineering. With tiny amounts of memory and limited hardware, developers created experiences that defined a generation. Each cartridge was not just a game, but a physical extension of the console itself, proof that creativity thrives under limitations. Unlock more tech mysteries at smartchoicelinks.com. Your smart choice for links.